Okay, let's get into this. We're looking at something really fascinating today. That sort of friction point, you know, where monolingual and plurilingual experiences meet.
Right, the interaction itself.
Exactly. And we're using Germany as our main example for this deep dive. The goal here really is to see how these basic differences in how your brain handles language, how that actually plays out in society, causes friction, different ways of seeing the world, that kind of thing. And it's not just black and white, is it? One language or many?
No, definitely not. It's much more of a spectrum.
Yeah, a spectrum. We're even talking about people who translanguage.
That's a really key concept here.
Right. Using bits of German, Turkish, English maybe, all mixed together, sometimes, you know, in the same sentence. So this is where it gets really interesting, I think. This experience, it actually physically changes your brain.
It absolutely does. There's a real neurological difference, observable changes.
Okay, so what does that look like? You know, for someone juggling multiple languages all the time.
Well, the key thing is what we call perpetual coactivation.
Coactivation, okay.
Yeah, essentially all the languages someone knows are always on to some degree in the brain. Think of it maybe like a sound mixer. All the channels are technically live, even if turned down low.
Ah, okay. So the brain has to constantly manage that incoming sound, metaphorically speaking.
Exactly. It has to actively suppress the languages you don't want to use in that exact moment and select the right one. Managing that interference, well, it requires really strong cognitive control mechanisms.
Cognitive control. Got it.
And that constant mental juggling, it's basically like nonstop training for your executive functions.
Okay, so it sounds like a serious cognitive advantage then, this constant training.
Oh, it is in many ways. The benefits are pretty significant. We see plurilinguals consistently doing better on certain nonverbal tasks.
Like what kind of tasks are we talking about?
Things that need strong attention, focus, task switching, and especially inhibitory control.
Inhibitory control, that's like actively tuning out distractions, ignoring the irrelevant stuff.
Precisely. Ignoring what's irrelevant to the task at hand. And interestingly, some studies even suggest this improved control might mean less tendency to daydream.
Wait, really? Daydream less? That's fascinating. That link between focus and, well, general mental discipline.
It's a strong connection that researchers are exploring.
But, okay, it can't be all upsides, can it? There must be some kind of trade-off for running such a, complex system in your head.
You're absolutely right. You've hit on it. The main trade-off tends to be a very slight, often barely noticeable delay in lexical access.
Lexical access. You mean finding the exact right word?
Precisely. Finding a specific word in one particular language might just take a fraction of a second longer sometimes. But it's really important not to see it as a deficit, you see.
All right, not a flaw.
No. It's more like a feature of this really sophisticated management system that's busy handling multiple active language systems. It's managing complexity. And this goes beyond just pure brain function, It starts to shape how you actually perceive the world. Language isn't just a tool you pick up and put down.
It's more like a lens you look through. It filters how you see things.
Exactly, a framework. Think about this example. German speakers describing an action might often focus on the goal, like a woman walks towards her car.
Okay, the destination.
Whereas an English speaker might focus more on the action itself. A woman is walking. It's a subtle but real shift in perspective.
Right, a different emphasis based on the language structure.
And someone plurilingual.
Yeah.
They often develop this amazing flexibility to kind of mentally switch between these different conceptual frames depending on the context or the language they're using.
Which must have knock-on effects for social stuff too, right? For understanding other people. Oh, absolutely. Think about it, if you're constantly navigating different languages, you're also often navigating different cultural assumptions. You have to constantly consider how someone from a different background, maybe a different linguistic framework, might hear or interpret what you're saying.
You have to anticipate their perspective much more actively.
Precisely. And doing that day in, day out, it really sharpens your cognitive empathy, your theory of mind, that ability to understand others' mental states. It becomes a practice skill.
Okay, so you've got this enhanced empathy, this perspective-taking ability. You'd think that would make social interactions smoother, especially in diverse places like Germany.
Logically, yes, you'd expect that.
But then we look at Germany. There's often this strong emphasis on mastering German, the Leitkultur idea.
The guiding culture concept.
Right, but reality is something like 30% of people have a migrant background. Lots of Turkish, Arabic, Russian speakers, many others. And there's definitely societal friction. So why doesn't that cognitive advantage seem to translate smoothly at the societal level? Well, a big part of it seems to be the kind of default German cultural structure. It's sort of built on an implicit assumption of monolingualism and its associated communication style.
Oh, okay. Like that's the baseline everyone's measured against.
In many ways, yes. And that baseline clashes, often quite dramatically, with how people from other linguistic and cultural backgrounds communicate or even view things like time.
Let's break that down then. Communication first. Germany is pretty famous for being very direct, isn't it?
Extremely direct, typically. Low context is the technical term. They generally value explicitness, clarity, Klartext reden, as they say, speaking plainly. Get straight to the point.
Right, no beating around the bush.
Exactly. Now, contrast that with many high-context cultures, common among migrant communities in Germany, where communication is much more indirect, relies on shared understanding, nuance, and preserving face, both yours and the other person's, is really crucial.
So a direct German comment meant factually might land very differently for someone from a high-context background.
It really can. What's intended as straightforward objective feedback can easily be felt as, well, blunt, insensitive, maybe even a personal criticism or insult. That's a huge source of misunderstanding right there.
And what about time? You mentioned time earlier, that famous German efficiency, the Ordnen order. That must play into the friction too?
Oh, absolutely. That's probably the other major clash point. Chronemics, how we perceive and use time. German culture is typically very monochronic.
Monochronic, meaning one thing at a time. Linear.
Yes, exactly. Meaning time is generally seen as linear, like a commodity you can save or waste. Punctuality is vital. Schedules are meant to be kept. Things happen sequentially one after another with clear beginnings and endings. Processes minimize ambiguity.
Okay, very structured, predictable.
Very. Now, contrast that with many other cultures which tend to be more polychronic. There, time is much more fluid, flexible. Relationships, current human needs, they often take priority over sticking rigidly to a predetermined schedule. Multiple things can happen simultaneously. Being 5 minutes late isn't necessarily a crisis.
Right, so you have fundamentally clashing expectations about just how life and interactions should be structured and paced.
Precisely. And underneath a lot of this friction, there's often this unconscious bias we touched on. We call it the monolingual bias.
Right, the idea that just speaking one language perfectly is the default. Or maybe even somehow superior.
Basically, yes. It's the often unexamined assumption that monolingualism is the norm, the ideal state to aspire to. And that bias leads directly to what researchers call the comparative fallacy.
Okay, what's that?
It's essentially where we judge someone who's plurilingual, not for the complex dynamic skills they do possess in managing multiple languages, but instead we measure them against this impossible, idealized standard of being like two or more perfect, separate monolinguals rolled into one person, and they inevitably fall short of that unrealistic benchmark.
So the real tension here, it seems, boils down to this clash between a system often built on linear structure, directness, and order.
The Ordnung and Klartext.
And the kind of inherent flexibility, the perspective switching, maybe even the productive ambiguity that comes with being plurilingual.
That sums up the core tension quite well, yes. The highly structured versus the inherently fluid and adaptable.
So where do we go from here? How does a society like Germany, or really any diverse society, start to bridge that gap more effectively?
Well, I think the key thing to consider, perhaps for you listening, is the need to develop what we could call metacultural awareness.
Metacultural awareness. Like awareness about culture itself, stepping outside your own automatic assumptions.
Exactly that. It's that ability to consciously take a step back from your own ingrained cultural and linguistic viewpoint, analyze an interaction more objectively, seeing the different frameworks at play, and then consciously choose the most effective communication strategy for that specific situation with those specific people.
So it's about being more consciously adaptable rather than just defaulting to your own way?
Precisely. Being adaptable, being consciously flexible. That's really, I believe, the key to unlocking the full potential, the incredible cognitive and social resources that a diverse population brings to any society. It's about mutual recognition and adaptation, not just expecting everyone to assimilate perfectly to one predefined norm. Something to think about.